Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Station 07.1 Podfix. I'm your host, Rin, and this is the continuation of You're on Your Own, Kid by CastleintheAir1989. This is Chapter 7. Yeah, you can face this. Also, this chapter has abuse, violence, and briefly described panic attacks. So, enjoy! The following week went well. Izuku found he was less fearful going to school, knowing that his homeroom teacher wasn't going to snap at him for no reason. He still walked on eggshells, though, never certain if he might accidentally discover something that set him off. Everyone got angry sometimes, especially if they were dealing with someone as frustrating as him. Izuku knew he was difficult. His mumbling and crying was annoying, and he was always such a bother. Even the best teacher wouldn't be able to put up with him forever. Ozawa-sensei was nice. He was nicer than any teacher Izuku had ever had. However, that didn't mean that he wouldn't eventually get angry with him, and Izuku wanted this to last. He would have to make sure to be extra careful. He couldn't do anything to ruin this. He was very, very careful that week. He made sure to wear his wrist brace every day so Ozawa-sensei could see he listened to him. When they had a test, Izuku purposely missed several of the questions. He didn't want his new teacher to think he was cheating. Ozawa-sensei had believed him. His teacher had believed him. He couldn't do anything to make him think he was a cheat or a liar. What if he didn't believe him anymore? Izuku couldn't let that happen. Everything continued smoothly until Thursday. They had just been dismissed for lunch when Ozawa-sensei called him out. "Midoriya, hang back a moment," he said, motioning for Izuku to come up to his desk. Izuku approached his teacher and saw that he held the test he turned in this week in his hand. Sensei wanted to talk to him about his test. His stomach dropped. The tension started in his shoulders, working its way down his spine. A hazy static filled his ears. His lungs felt like they were being squeezed, making it difficult for him to draw in a breath. "Midoriya, I've noticed you've missed a lot of questions on the test you answered correctly in the homework. Can you tell me what's going on?" Sensei asked. Izuku struggled to follow along with what he was saying, the pounding nearly drowning out all other sounds. The old terror returned, gripping his heart as if it never left. Izuku should have kept track of the questions he supposedly missed. Sensei wouldn't have noticed anything if he hadn't got sloppy. Did he know? What if he knew? If he knew Izuku was a liar, he'd never believe him again. What if he made Ozawa-sensei hate him too, just like all the other teachers hated him? He was going to be so angry, and he was so close. He could grab him and he wouldn't be able to get away. "Are you still with me, kid?" Ozawa-sensei's voice broke through his thoughts. I'm sorry, Sensei," he blurted out. "I didn't cheat. I promise I'm telling the truth. I really am." He curled his arms around himself, unable to bring himself to meet his eyes. "I never thought you cheated." His voice was calm and matter-of-fact. Izuku's head snapped up and he stared at him, confused. "Really?" The word caught against his throat. Of course not. He said this as if the idea had never crossed his mind. "Would you mind telling me why you missed those questions now?" "I didn't want anyone to think I was cheating." Biting his lip, he tried to explain. "Everyone knows that I'm not smart enough to get all the questions right without copying off someone else. I didn't want you to stop believing me." He shrugged. "You work hard. There's no reason you shouldn't score well." "Even though I'm quirkless?" The words slipped out of his mouth before he could stop them. "That in no way affects your aptitude." Ozawa-sensei leveled his even gaze on him. "There's no reason for you to hide your intellect from me." Izuku's eyes stung with unshed tears, and he blinked them away, a few slipping down his cheeks unbidden. "You believe me?" he asked, afraid to hope. "The other teachers thought I was cheating if I scored well. You don't think that?" "No, you're intelligent and you work hard." Ozawa-sensei watched as Izuku scrubbed his face with the back of his sleeve. "Did you think I was going to be angry with you?" he asked, his voice soft. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to doubt you, Izuku whispered. I'm sorry, he repeated. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize. I meant what I said the day before. Even if I were angry, which I'm not, he empathized, I wouldn't take that out on you. I know, and I did believe you. I really did. It's just... He looked to the ground. I thought it would be different if I messed up. He shrugged his shoulders. It would be different if I deserved it. Midoriya, you don't deserve it. Ozawa-sensei's voice was firm. Nothing you do would justify someone else hurting you. A single sob tore its way out of his throat, his shoulders shaking as tears streamed down his face. He pressed his hand to his mouth, breath hitching. Resting his hand on his shoulder, Ozawa-sensei crouched beside him. Deep breaths, kid. Izuku nodded, slowly inhaling and exhaling as instructed. Gradually, his breathing returned to normal and his tears stopped. Removing his hand from where it rested on his shoulder, Ozawa-sensei straightened and stepped back to the desk. Izuku already mourned the loss of his hand. Its presence comforted and grounded him. Sensei took a tissue from his desk and handed it to Izuku, who gratefully accepted it. Whispering a small thank you, he wiped his face with it. Do you want to go to lunch now, or would you prefer to hang out here? Ozawa-sensei asked. I'd rather stay here, if you don't mind. He didn't think he could face his classmates at the moment. Ozawa-sensei nodded. Silently returning to his desk, he began grading papers. Izuku likewise returned to his desk, pulling out his bento. While he ate, he scribbled in his notebook, keeping half an eye on Ozawa-sensei. Didn't Sensei have his lunch break now too? Did he really want to spend it looking after Izuku? It felt strange to be in the same room with his teacher and not feel afraid. In fact, Ozawa-sensei's presence lent a feeling of safety. It was so kind of him to stay. The lunch period passed easily with no one to bother him. He enjoyed not having to look over his shoulder, or worry about his food or notebook being torn from his hands. And even as his classmates began to filter back into the room, a smile remained on Izuku's face. The good feeling lasted until gym class. Izuku struggled to do push-ups with his strained wrist. The brace impeded his mobility and made it difficult to keep his form. When the gym teacher noticed his struggles, he snapped at him, yelling at him to take off his wrist brace if it was going to get in his way and stop him from working hard. Reluctantly, he slipped it off his wrist, sticking it in the pocket of his backpack. By the end of class, his wrist throbbed from the exertion. Relieved that class had finished, he went to put his brace back on. Reaching into the pocket he left it in, his hand met nothing. It wasn't there. He frowned, disappointed. His wrist screamed from putting his weight on it for the whole class period. Someone must have taken it. Frowning, he changed clothes and hurried to his next class. It wouldn't do to get in trouble for being late. He shuddered, thinking about his teacher's reactions if he didn't make it to class on time. It was definitely not worth it. He made his way through the rest of his classes for the day, wrists throbbing painfully at every movement. He grabbed his things from his locker, shoving them in his backpack and pulling out his hero analysis notebook. He wanted to be ready if he saw anything interesting on the way home. Right as he was about to leave, a familiar voice behind him stopped him in his tracks. His chest seized, an icy terror washing over him as he turned to face Okumura-sensei. Okumura-sensei advanced on Izuku, waving a paper in his hand as he yelled. Backing up, Izuku shrank in on himself, bringing his arms up around his head. Okumura-sensei cornered him, cutting off his escape routes. There you are, you little brat, he yelled, grabbing him by the wrist, squeezing it. Izuku let out a cry as the pain radiated through his injured wrist and up his arm. His knees went weak and he sagged against the lockers, his notebook slipping unnoticed from his hand. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, he spat, tightening his grip on his wrist. Do you really think you're as good as the rest of us? Is that why I saw your UA application? Dribbles of sweat rolled down his face as he crushed the application in his hand. The audacity! To think you could get into a place like that! What do you think you're doing? The voice was cold, and Izuku raised his head to meet the eyes of Ozawa-sensei. Pushing himself in between Izuku and Okumura-sensei, Ozawa-sensei glared down at the other man, shoving him away from Izuku and forcing him to drop his hold on his wrist. Izuku snatched his arm away as soon as it was released. Ozawa-sensei stepped closer, anger radiating off him. He grabbed Okumura-sensei by the collar of his shirt and slammed him into the opposite wall. Not loosening his grip, he leaned in and growled, "I meant what I said last time. If I ever see you touch my student again, or even speak to him, I will make you pay for it." He shoved him away, and Izuku watched as Okumura-sensei stumbled off, trying, and failing, to regain his composure. He turned his attention back to Izuku. As quickly as it appeared, the anger vanished. "You're safe now, kid. I won't let him hurt you." Izuku wrapped his arms around himself, nodding shakily. "Is your wrist okay?" Ozawa-sensei asked, and Izuku held out his wrist for him to inspect. He took it in his hand, gently turning it over. "What happened to your brace?" "I lost it," he grimaced. "Sorry." Ozawa-sensei raised one eyebrow. "Kid, I just saw you wearing it today. What happened?" "I had to take it off for gym class since it was getting in the way. But when I went to put it back on, it wasn't there. Sorry, I didn't mean to lose it." "You lost it?" He narrowed his eyes. "Or did somebody take it?" How did he always manage to see through him? Izuku shrugged his shoulders, ducking his chin. "Kid, I'm not angry at you. You shouldn't have even been made to take it off in the first place." "I had to," he insisted. "It got in my way during gym. Nishizawa-sensei made me do extra push-ups because I took so long." He frowned. "Your teacher should be letting you rest and heal, not pushing you to do things even when it hurts." Seeing Izuku's notebook splayed open on the ground, he reached down and picked it up. "What's this?" It's just some hero analysis. I like to do it sometimes." He would probably think it was stupid. "May I look at it?" he asked, waiting for an answer instead of paging through it. "It's not very good." He shrugged, looking at the ground. Izuku really didn't want his teacher to see his scribbles. He didn't want to see the rolling eyes and condescending smile and mocking smirk that always came. He knew it was weird. He didn't need to be told again. "Go ahead," he reluctantly agreed, not sure if he was allowed to give any other answer. "You know you're allowed to say no, right?" His teacher's gentle voice assured him. He was? He actually had a choice, he realized. Sensei had kept his word before. He protected him from other teachers. He cared. No teacher had ever cared before, not about Izuku. "No, I mean, yes, I know that." "I want to believe you." "You can look at it, Sensei. I don't mind." He smiled, nodding his head. Trust was a difficult thing. For someone not used to trusting others, it was nearly impossible. It made him jittery, putting something so important to him in the hands of another person. But he made the decision to trust Ozawa-sensei. He prayed it was the right one. Midori had really thought he was in trouble. He thought he would be angry at him. And for what? Merely failing to significantly hide his intelligence? The absolute horror in his eyes when Shota had asked to speak to him had haunted his mind. He thought it would be okay if Shota hurt him if he deserved it. As if he could ever deserve to be treated like that. And he thought Shota would understand that, would take advantage of any excuse to lay his hands on him. Shota observed him through lunch, more than happy to skip a meal to make sure his students stayed safe. With how he was treated at this school, Shota was afraid to let him out of his sight until he got every last teacher here fired. It did ease his mind a bit seeing Midoriya relax in his presence. Warily glancing at Shota at first, the kid soon busied himself writing in the notebook he always carried around, the tension leaking out of his shoulders. By the time the bell rang signaling the end of the period, he had a smile lingering on his face as he bid him a soft thank you and goodbye. Shota almost let himself believe that the day had turned around. He was leaving the classroom, on time for once, when he saw Okumura towering over Izuku. Shota saw red. Striding over, he shoved the man out of the way, planting himself in front of his student, threatening the man within an inch of his life if he ever touched his student again. He didn't take his eyes off him until he was out of sight. Midoriya visibly relaxed when he left, wilting as soon as Shota turned around. He barely smothered a rising spark of anger after checking Midoriya's wrist. It looked worse than it had the rest of the week. Midoriya seemed more worried about Shota's reaction than the fact he was hurt. Shota was reluctant to press the issue too far, afraid he might clam up. Spying the kid's notebook on the ground, Shota picked it up. He asked about it, hoping the subject change might help him relax. But, if anything, Midoriya seemed more tense. Answering Shota's question, he explained that it was his hero analysis, insisting that it wasn't very good. He asked Midoriya to see his analysis, not wanting to look at it without his student's explicit permission. Not expecting him to say yes, he was surprised when Midoriya agreed. He clearly seemed reluctant for Shota to see whatever was written in the notebook. You know you're allowed to say no, right? Shota reminded him. The trust between them was so fragile, one wrong move could crush it. No, I mean yes, I know that. He lifted his gaze to meet Shota's, a determined glint in his eyes. You can look at it, Sensei. I don't mind. Impressed with the confidence Midoriya willingly placed in him, he nodded solemnly. He would take care not to damage the tentative faith he put in him, or give him any reason to doubt that he could be trusted. Carefully, Shota paged through the notebook. Midoriya's drawings were good. The analysis Shota found more than impressive. It was better than the work some of UA's third years did. While it was clear that he had no former training, it was impressive for someone Midoriya's age. The kid had some real potential. It was a shame the way everyone here drilled into this kid the idea that he was a worthless nothing. It was like no one had given the kid an ounce of encouragement in his life. He had very little sense of self-worth, doubtless caused by the teachers here. Shota couldn't fix a lifetime of being put down, but he could at least give him some needed and well-deserved encouragement now. This is impressive. He looked up, watching his student. Have you ever thought about going into heroics? The boy shrugged, eyes fixed firmly on the ground. I know that's not realistic. Why not? You're smart and you clearly have a good understanding of quirks. Why not be a hero if that's what you want? You really mean it? He stared at him, his eyes wide. You don't think it's too dangerous? Of course. It's a lot of work, but if you're willing to put in the effort, I see no reason you couldn't be a hero. No one's ever said that before, he whispered, blinking away the tears that had gathered in the corners of his eyes. Well, they're wrong about you. None of the things the people have been saying about you were right, kid. Midoriya's shoulders shook as tears dripped down his cheeks, but a wide smile adorned his face. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. One thing was sure. If Midoriya truly wanted to be a hero, there was nothing in the world that could stop him. You're not gonna believe this, but that is the end of Chapter 7. I hope you all enjoyed, and don't forget to tune in next time for Chapter 8. This was Station 07.1 Podfix.